Okay, so here's my HK450 that I will be installing in my Airwolf fuselage here. Now I've already set it up, I've test flown it, flies great. So before I get ready to install it in there, I got to take a couple things off: the skids, the rear fins, the boom supports. Um, but before I get into that here, real quickly, I just wanted to talk to you about the retractable wheels on my fuselage. All right, now normally you need like a 7-channel radio to operate your retracts. Now I'm using a 6-channel radio. So to be able to operate my retracts and have my helicopter function properly, what I did was I chose the Turnigy gyro, which is the same thing as the Telebi gyro. And the reason I did this was because these gyros, they work great without having the gyro gain wire plugged in. And without having to need this wire plugged in, all that means is my gyro is always in head holding mode, and if I want to adjust the gain on it, I got to actually adjust it through the gyro. Now, if I plug this in, I would be able to adjust it through my transmitter. But the reason I don't want to do that is because what I want to do is I hooked up a servo where this wire would go, and that allows me to operate this servo with the switch that would switch my gyro between head holding mode and rate mode. And I can adjust the limit of how far this servo travels by adjusting the gain in the radio. So this way I'll be able to operate my retracts, and my helicopter is still going to fly properly, because like I said, with this gyro, it's always going to be in head holding mode, and it works fine without having this wire plugged in. So with that sorted, now I'm going to get ready to install this in there. So I'm going to take the skids off, the boom supports, the fins, and you can see I've got the electronics just kind of mounted on here. I am going to be moving some of these when I mount it in the fuselage, but I just kind of place them there just for testing purposes. So I'm going to get this stuff off, and then I'm going to come right back. Alright, the skids are off, tail boom supports are off, and the fins are off. Now, make sure you save the screws here for this back vertical fin, because you're still going to need those. So anyways, so I've got those parts off. I took my speed controller off for the moment, and I just took this off, because once I get this in the fuselage, I am going to be moving the electronics around a little bit. So just for now, I just took that off. Now, also, real quickly on the fuselage here, you can see I've taken the tail off. Now this comes off. It's held in place by 3 screws, and you take those 3 screws off, and it pops off. So, moving on to this, the next thing I had to do is take the tail box off so I can slide the whole helicopter inside the fuselage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the linkage, take the screws out so I can actually take the tail box apart, and then we'll wrap a wire around the tail belt so it doesn't get slid in the boom or twist or anything. And then I'm going to start test fitting it into the fuselage. Okay, then real quickly just about taking this tail box apart. Since when you have this in the fuselage, you're not going to be able to access these bolts up here to loosen the tension on the belt. So you just got to kind of take it off, and you will have to mess with it getting the tail box back on, but that's just kind of the way it goes. So anyways, I'm just going to show you here what I'm doing. So I've already taken a couple of the bolts off, and I've already undone the tail servo linkage there. And we got one more. Alright, so now the one side comes off, the other side comes off. So then what I do is I take a piece of wire and I go through the little hole on the boom, and then I just tie the wire off. The reason I do this, because now the belt is always going to, I know where the belt's always going to be. Even if it turns like this, I know that all I got to do is turn it just like that, and it's going to be right where I need it. It's also not going to be able to slide back in the boom. So now I can go ahead and start test fitting the helicopter in the fuselage. Okay, so I've got everything all mounted on here, and everything's mounted on here pretty tightly. Try not to let it hang on over the sides here or anything. So anyways, now I'm going to get ready to install this here. Now, also you get a bunch of wood framing. This is for the front servo here for your retracts. And the rest of these are spacers. Now, I'm going to be using 2 of these, and I really don't know what the rest of these are for, so I can't help you there. But what it is, you can see here, and what I did was I glued them in place, actually, so that way I can just slide the helicopter down in the fuselage and not have to worry about trying to slide these underneath it. So what I'm going to do is I am going to slide this down in here, and I'm going to try to get it as far back as I can so that I can reattach the tail boom. Okay, even after you slide the helicopter all the way back in the fuselage, you'll find that there's not a whole lot of the tail boom sticking out here. But it is possible to get this mounted on there. It's just a little bit more of a pain in the butt than you'd like. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get this mounted on there, and then I'll come back to securing the actual helicopter to the fuselage. Okay, so I've got the tail all situated. Okay, and you can see just how much that actually sticks out from there. Not very much there. Alright, so now what I did was I went ahead and I screwed through the bottom of the fuselage, through the little piece of wood there, into the bottom of the frame. Now what I had done prior to this, and I mentioned it earlier, was I actually super glued these in place inside the fuselage. And then the other thing I did, which I didn't mention, was I actually stuck the screws through there and put little pieces of tape over the screws to hold them on there. So that way, once I had the frame in here, it was easier to position the helicopter inside the fuselage if I knew where the screws were. So that was just a little trick that I did. And I used the screws that were originally holding on the landing gear. So that worked out pretty good. So now I'm just going to bolt this on real quick. You know, that just goes back here on the back there. Let's see, like that. I'm going to bolt that back on. And then I'm going to turn my attention towards my retracts. Alright, got my retract servo mounted. And here you can get a little bit better look at how I got that on there. Alright, let's see here when I hit the switch. So, that is that. Now, what I'm going to do is a couple other things to take care of. And then I'm just going to wrap everything up and go take it for a test flight.